No exposes would make an entire American audience cry. But the real shock came seconds after the final note faded, when the cameras caught something no one ever thought Americans would show on live TV. It wasn't just tears, it was heartbreak. And it all began with a Filipino song most Americans had never heard before. It was a cold November night in New York City. Yet the air around the famous Beacon Theater felt strange. Parang may paparating na hindi ordinaryo. The lights cut through the darkness. The red carpet glowed, and the noise of thousands inside the theater sounded like a restless ocean. The show that night was The Global Stage, a huge international talent special broadcast to over countries. At exactly p.m., the host announced, "Next performer from the Philippines, Maria Celestina." People clapped politely, not loud, not excited, just normal clapping. Most Americans there didn't know her. They didn't know Filipino music. They didn't know what a small woman from Southeast Asia could possibly do on a giant Western stage. But everything was about to change, because Maria wasn't just bringing a song. She was bringing a story the world had ignored for years. Maria walked onto the stage slowly, thin, calm, her eyes looking down like she was saying a silent prayer. She wore a simple white dress, no glitter, no fancy jewelry, nothing that screamed superstar. She didn't look like someone who would shock the world. She didn't look like someone who could break the heart of a whole nation. And yet when she finally lifted her head, the theater went silent. Her eyes looked swollen like she had cried before walking out. Her hands shook like the song she was about to sing wasn't just music, parang confession. See her, even the host stared at her confused. Something was wrong. But no one knew what. Earlier that day, cameras filmed the backstage documentary. What the producers discovered surprised them so much that they froze. Maria came to New York carrying the ashes of her father inside a tiny wooden urn hidden in her backpack. "He always wanted to see me perform," Maria said softly, "so I brought him with me." That one line already broke the hearts of the production team. But what they didn't know was this. The song Maria chose tonight was the same song she sang to her father as he took his final breath. The lights dimmed, a lone piano played soft, slow notes. Maria took a deep breath, then another. Then she began to sing. Her voice floated into the darkness, soft, shaky, full of emotion. The first words cut through the cold room like a small knife made of memory. Americans leaned forward in their seats. Something about the melody felt old and sad, even if they didn't understand the language. The lyrics were in Tagalog. Foreign different, but pain doesn't need translation. Subtitles appeared. "If you ever leave me, please not on Christmas Day." People G the meaning, but because of the tremble in Maria's voice, a tremble filled with real grief. This wasn't acting. This wasn't performance. This was a heartbreaking in real time. At the back of the theater, a producer whispered, "Oh my God, look at the crowd!" Rows of Americans, people known for holding emotions inside, were wiping their eyes. Some hid behind their programs. Others stared forward, tears running down their cheeks. The director shouted, "Camera 3, crowd shots, now!" And suddenly, the world watched Americans cry while a Filipino sang in a language they didn't understand. Maria's voice grew stronger. Her hands tightened around the microphone. Her knees trembled because she wasn't just remembering her father. She was reliving his final moments. Days before Maria stood on that giant New York stage, she was sitting inside a small hospital room in Quezon City. The air smelled like medicine. Machines beeped slowly, and her father, Raymond, lay on the hospital bed, his breath becoming weaker every hour. Maria held his hand tightly. "Tay, I can stay," she whispered. "I don't have to go to New York." But her father shook his head even though he looked so tired. "Anna," he said softly, "don't stop your dream because of me." Tears filled Maria's eyes. "But I don't want to leave you," her father smiled. A weak but warm smile she would remember forever. "Sing for the world, Maria," he told her. "And when they listen, they will hear the voice of every Filipino through you," Maria cried as she hugged him. And while she was softly singing their favorite Christmas song, her father took his final breath. The same song she was singing right now in front of millions. Back on stage, the spotlight glowed on Maria as her voice carried more pain with each word. Her voice cracked. The pianist almost stopped playing. Shocked by the raw emotion suddenly pouring out of her, the whole theater froze. Maria lifted her face toward the ceiling as if looking for someone only she could see. Her lips trembled, her shoulders shook, and then she sang the line that broke the entire room. The final note didn't fade beautifully like a normal performance. It broke. It shattered. It fell apart into a soft, painful sob that the microphone captured clearly. The pianist stopped playing completely. The audience did not move, not one person. It felt like the entire world held its breath. Then a loud sob came from the front row. A woman in her holding a small picture frame cried openly. Her son had died serving in the military. The lyrics, even though they were in Tool, stabbed straight into her heart. Another person cried, then another and another. Even men who usually hid their emotions sat still, staring at the stage with tears running down their cheeks. No one laughed, no one clapped. No one even breathed too loudly. They were witnessing a moment that didn't feel like a performance. It felt like a prayer. Slowly, the audience began to stand. Not cheering, not shouting, just rising to their feet in total silence, like they were honoring something sacred, something bigger than the show. Maria fell to her knees on stage. She covered her face as tears streamed down. The microphone slipped from her hand and hit the floor with a soft thud. The host rushed to her and knelt beside her. "Maria, are you all right?" he asked gently. Maria couldn't answer. She just whispered 2 words, "Barakai, for my father." And the whole audience finally broke into loud, emotional applause, one of the loudest the theater had ever heard. Backstage, chaos turned into silence as Maria walked off the stage with shaking legs. The cameras followed her, recording everything for the documentary. But what they saw wasn't normal after performance emotion. It was deeper. It was real grief. Makeup artists froze. Sound crew members stepped aside. Even the strict producers didn't say a word. Maria sat on a small metal chair, holding her hands together to stop them from shaking. She tried to breathe, but every breath felt like it carried a memory of her father. One producer slowly approached her. "Sedvas." "Unbelievable," he whispered. "I've worked here for years. I've never seen Americans cry like that." But before Maria could answer, the cameras focused on something else happening backstage. People, mostly Americans, were crying too. A lighting technician wiped his face with his sleeve. A camera operator sniffed loudly, trying to hide it. Even the director, who was known for never showing emotion, took off his headset and walked away so no one would see him tearing up. It wasn't just the song. It was the honesty in Maria's voice. It was the kind of pain everyone understands no matter where they're from. Then something unexpected happened. An elderly American man, maybe in his late S, slowly walked toward Maria. He held something folded tightly in his arms. "A U.S. military burial flag?" His voice shook as he spoke. "My wife was Filipina," he said softly. "Her name was Leela. She died years ago." Maria looked up, surprised. She used to sing that same song every Christmas. He continued, tears filling his eyes. "When you sang tonight, I felt like she was here again." Maria's lips trembled. The old man gently placed the folded flag in her hands. "She would be proud of you," he whispered. "Thank you for reminding me of her." Maria broke into tears and hugged him. 2 strangers from opposite sides of the world connected by one song. The moment was so emotional that the documentary crew silently lowered their cameras. It felt too personal to film. Meanwhile, out in the audience, people were still wiping their faces. The theater staff had never seen anything like it. A young couple hugged tightly. A businessman sat with his head bowed, tears dripping onto his suit. Even teenagers, usually glued to their phones, stared at the stage in shock, still crying. Clips from the performance hit the internet within minutes. Tweets, TikTok edits, reaction videos. One viral comment said, "I didn't understand a single word. But why does it feel like the song was meant for me?" Another said, "Filipino singers carry emotions like no one else." Within an hour, the video reached million views. Within hours, million people everywhere, Americans, Europeans, Asians, were sharing the performance with one message. "You need to watch this Filipina sing? Prepare tissues." Back in her dressing room, Maria finally calmed down. She looked to spoke Narilik Nila, "Dad, they're hearing you." Her voice cracked again, but this time there was a small smile on her face because the world was finally listening days after Maria's performance. The world could not stop talking about her. News channels replayed the clip every hour. Music critics called it one of the most powerful live performances of the decade. Celebrities reacted online, many of them crying too. But the most unbelievable part, full theaters in America were watching a Tagalog song and crying like the story belonged to them. The global stage producers held an emergency meeting. They needed to talk about what happened, because they had never seen a reaction like this, not in years. One producer said her voice didn't just touch people, it broke something open. Another replied, "She healed pain we didn't even know we were carrying." And then the director added, "She showed the world how Filipinos feel, deep, honest, and real." Emails flooded the show's inbox from all around the world. From France, "We do not know the words, but we felt every emotion." From Brazil, "Why does this Filipino singer's voice hurt in the most beautiful way?" From South Africa, "Can we get subtitles? I want to understand this song." And then a surprising message came from Japan. "We would like to organize a Filipino music tribute concert here in Tokyo." Japan, a country known for discipline, silence, and emotional control, requesting a show centered on Filipino emotion. The producers were stunned. "America cried first," one of them said. "Now the world will follow." Meanwhile, Maria returned home to Manila. When she landed at the airport, people were waiting, cheering, waving signs, crying. Some shouted, "Maria, we're proud of you!" Pinoy pride. "You made the world feel our heart." Maria smiled shilly, but her eyes were filled with tears. She didn't see herself as a superstar. She didn't see herself as a hero. She was just a daughter who wanted her father to hear her sing one last time. A few days later, an envelope arrived at her small home. Inside, it was something she never expected. A letter, a certificate, and a plane ticket. Maria read the letter slowly. It said she had won the International Cultural Impact Award, the first Filipino to ever receive it. Her hands shook as she picked up the plane ticket and realized something. It wasn't for her. It was addressed to Ramirez. Her father, the old American man, the one who gave her his wife's Secunda burial flag, had worked with the show's producers to do something special. They wanted her father to have a symbolic seat at the awards ceremony. Maria pressed the ticket to her chest as tears rolled down her cheeks. "Tay," she whispered, narrating Karen. "Dad, you made it too." In the final shot of the documentary, Maria walked to Manila Bay at sunset. She stood quietly holding her father's urn. The wind gently blew her hair as the sky turned orange and gold. She looked at the water and said softly, "You told me the world would hear the voice of Filipinos, and you were right, Tay." The camera pulled back slowly, showing the wide, glowing horizon behind her. Just when the scene felt like it was ending, the screen faded to black. A final line appeared. Days after the performance, another nation asked for a Filipino music tribute concert. The country was Japan because while America cried first, the world was next. All because one Filipino daughter sang from her heart for the father she loved.